Hi guys, it's Jin in Soul Closet. Welcome to another video. I feel like I say this every time, but I haven't posted in a while, so this is the first time you guys are seeing me with my new colored hair, which was purple, but now it's gone because when you dye your hair in pastel colors, you lose that color in about 2 weeks. But purple is my favorite color, and I haven't had colored hair in about 10 years, so I'm really excited to be able to play with hair color a little bit. You probably have already seen my new hair color if you follow me on Instagram. I do post a little bit more on Instagram several times a week, so I do encourage you to follow me there if you do not. Anyway, today's video is going to be about debunking the myth that short girls cannot wear long skirts. I'm about 5'3", which is considered on the shorter side, even though like not super short in a lot of places, including where I am right now, which is America. And I see a lot of shorter girls say they feel like they cannot wear midi or maxi skirts because they feel like they look shorter in them, which I've personally found is not really true. And I wear midi skirts all the time. So I'm going to be showing you guys how I wear my longer skirts and some of the tips and tricks that you can hopefully apply to your own outfits. The different lengths of long skirts go in and out of fashion all the time. And for the past few years, we've had really long skirts, dresses, and coats that almost cover your ankle bones, but this hasn't always been the case. I kind of think of the rise in popularity of these very long lengths as coinciding with the rise of the brand Lumiere, which happened around 2017 or 2018. Before this time, it wasn't really easy to find skirts that go all the way down to your ankles. And most of the midi or maxi dresses and skirts you could find really stopped below the knee or around the largest part of your calves. And in my opinion, it is possible to make all of these lengths work for shorter people, but different cuts have to go with different lengths. So what I think is happening is the shorter girls who complain about longer skirts are trying on skirts that are in the wrong cut for the length. And maybe they are assuming that all skirts in that length is not gonna work for them, which is not true. Let's talk about the longer lengths that are really popular these days. So by longer length, I mean the ones that fall right around your ankle bone or maybe a couple inches above that. The reason that these look really good on some people is that they emphasize the thinnest part of your legs, which are ankles. You will often find that skirts in this length are not necessarily super tight all the way through. They go like this and have a wide hem, which contrasts with the thinness of your ankles and make your overall body look thinner. And I actually like to emphasize the thinness of my ankles by wearing shoes that make my feet look larger, which I think a lot of people are kind of opposed to the idea, but I am totally okay as long as my ankles look thinner. So that's another look that I like to go for. And there are two types of cuts that I like at this length. One is the elongated A-line shape, and the other is the full gathered voluminous skirt. This is a longer A-line skirt that I got in the summer. So the first type that I was talking about, it is high-waisted and has a slim outline. And I like to think it does make me look taller, but maybe it doesn't. In any case, I don't think it makes me look super short, which is something that a lot of people are worried about when it comes to longer skirts. And this is a pretty good silhouette if you are more into feminine silhouettes. Oftentimes, I don't know if it's appropriate to say this, but this kind of skirt, people think it makes them look fundy, like fundamentalist Christian, which I can kind of see it sometimes. The way to go around that is just to wear something more revealing other than your skirt, or just put in more effort into your look and make it look intentional. And this includes things like jewelry, accessories, and your bag, your hair, whatever that is maybe a little bit more out there compared to what you usually do when you're not wearing a skirt that looks funny. So I don't actually have a standalone gather skirt in this length, but I have this dress, which is a beautiful dress that I got in Korea this summer. This is more of a oversized silhouette on both top and bottom, which some people don't like because they think it makes them look engulfed in clothes. Honestly, if you're gonna do oversized at this length, it kind of comes down to whether you can accept the engulfedness of your clothes or not. And there is a lot of experimentation you can do with the silhouette. I really like doing this because this is a really unique look that only short people can pull off. Tall people cannot do this because they have different proportions. So you have an advantage if you go for the engulfed look. Obviously, you can see it is very comfy too. Another thing with gather skirts at this length is the volume of the skirt. As you can see, mine is very voluminous, which I really prefer at this length because if you have a gathered skirt with less volume, maybe it only has one layer or just like one layer and the lining, then it does go more towards the fundy territory. It's harder to make those look intentional, especially if you are tucking your top into the skirt. There are a couple of caveats with this length of skirts. First is the location of your waistline, which I usually make my top to bottom ratio be 1:2 or 1:3 ratio. So basically if the top is taking more than 1/3 of the covered parts of your body, you should go for a shorter skirt. Which is just a complicated way of saying if you go for a really long skirt, hike up your waistline as much as possible. And as usual, this means the skirt is sitting at your natural waist, but it's actually also possible to wear longer skirts and not have your waistline super high up if you don't tuck your top in and pay attention to the proportions. So this skirt I got from a sample sale and it wasn't exactly my size. It's like half a size bigger, so it doesn't sit exactly at my natural waist. And the length is pretty long. I think this is actually one of the longest skirts that I own. And if I wear it with the top tucked into the skirt, then the waistline is lower as well as the hem of the skirt being really low. So that just kind of brings the line of sight downwards and those make me look a little bit shorter, I feel. In this case, I actually prefer to have a 1:1 ratio top to bottom. And that for me usually means that I'm wearing a more oversized top that's more like hip length and untucked, not tucked into the skirt. For this kind of proportion, I think it is essential that you don't have like a tight hip band for your top. Another thing you can do is go for a longer top that is tight all the way around. So maybe lower hip length or something that covers your whole butt. I would just avoid tops that are like super roomy through the waist but taper down around the hips because this kind of silhouette can really place your waistline super far down unless you make it super obvious that that's not where your waistline actually is. And the second caveat about this length is the cut of the skirt not matching your height. So what I mean is for a lot of ruffled or tiered or mermaid cut skirts, those are cut for taller people. So for example, you go out and buy a mermaid skirt, but it's too long, so you hem it. But now the proportion is all messed up, so it looks weird. Or like you try to wear it without hemming, but it's still too long or still too big, so you can't really wear it. This is something that you should avoid. So in my opinion, it's just best to avoid these designs that clearly have like a cut where your knees are supposed to be a lot higher than they actually are, if that makes sense. And an item that has been really popular for a few years now that often has this type of problem is silk bias slips and skirts. And these are usually cut kind of in a mermaid shape and you maybe have the flare at the bottom starting around your knees, or where your knees are supposed to be if you're a taller person. But you're short and your knees are not that high up, so if you try to hem it, now your like knee point is starting below where your knees are actually situated, and you look shorter as a result, or just the proportion looks long. So if you still want to wear like a slip dress or a slip skirt, I would recommend one that's cut more straight rather than a more pronounced mermaid shape. And one cut I personally avoid is the H-line shape, or something that is like super tight all the way down to the ankles. So like a column skirt, column dress, whatever. It can be done if you have longer legs compared to your torso, which can still happen to shorter people, but that's not my body type. If you have shorter legs and a longer torso and you wear this kind of column dress or column skirt, it kind of ends up emphasizing the location of your actual hips, which is something that we want to avoid doing if you want to look taller. The next category of length is maybe about 2 or 3 inches shorter than the ankle length skirts that I just talked about. These ones will probably fall like right around or maybe a little bit below the widest part of your calves. And they do look really similar to the ankle length skirts, but the main difference is that basically these are too short to be the really trendy ankle length. So if you go with this length, it's not gonna be super trendy right now in 2023. But I do think this length is the best for shorter people. If you want some versatility over the years or something timeless, which I don't really believe in timeless, but that's something a lot of people seem to look for. This is going to have more longevity in your closet, I think. Like I just said, this length is really the sweet spot when it comes to longer skirts on shorter girls. You'll still get the wide hem and thin ankle effect if you go for a flared cut. But if you do go for a tighter fitting silhouette, you'll be able to see more of your legs, and that really helps with avoiding looking like you're wearing something that's too long for you. So I do really recommend this length as kind of the starting point for someone who's never tried a longer skirt and would like to try, as this is a really flattering length on both short and tall people. A lot of cuts look good in this length. You pretty much don't really have to worry about the cut at all when it comes to this length. And another great thing is that if you find a skirt in this length, you usually don't have to hem it. And if the skirt has a non-hemmable design, like it has some ruffles at the bottom or something, then you'll still be able to wear it in either high waist or the 1-to-1 ratio that I talked about earlier. Just one thing that I would watch out for if you have a skirt that is this length and kind of tied through your hips is if you don't pair that kind of skirt with a crop top or an exposed waist, then you run the risk of looking really disproportionate. And of course, some people do this intentionally and look great, but since you're watching this video, I would assume that you don't have the skills to make that look great yet. That's about the only situation that I would try to avoid while wearing this length. The last type of midi skirts is below the knee length. So it would cover your knees, but also fall above the widest part of your calves. This is definitely the least trendy of all midi lengths right now, because it kind of had its vogue around the early 2010s with twee, and 50s inspired silhouette hasn't been popular since then, although I have seen like a mini twee revival on TikTok, which I haven't heard in a while, so I think it just went away. In my opinion, this length is actually not as tricky as ankle skimming really long skirts, but just because it's not a trendy length at all, it's kind of hard to work this length into outfits that are not outdated. Since this length exposes the largest part of your calves and also cuts off below the knee, I don't like the fuller silhouettes at this length as much. So I got this dress a few years ago when the silhouette was still relatively popular, but I don't really wear it as much these days. because I feel like it's a little outdated. As you can see, there are 2 points in my overall silhouette where there is a flaring out. One is at my waist where the skirt starts, and the other is at my calves where the largest part of my calves are exposed. I think even back when this silhouette was popular, a lot of people wore it with heels, and for good reason. On the other hand, bodycon is a really great choice for this length if the occasion allows for really tight skirts. You want to emphasize the largest point of your calves as little as you can. And most people have a lot larger thighs than calves just by anatomy. So going with your natural leg shape is actually a really great option. A couple things to look out for is obviously first make sure the occasion allows for bodycon. You don't want to wear a really thin bodycon dress to meet your fiance's parents or something, especially if you have a great butt. A tight skirt is going to really emphasize your assets. The other thing is if you're worried about lumps, you can obviously do shapewear, or you can go for a thicker fabric that will smooth out any lumps that might show through thinner fabric. So a figure hugging skirt in a heavyweight rib knit fabric that cuts off right below the knee is actually one of my favorite things I like to see on plus size people. And I hope that was helpful for fellow short girls. If you like this video or have any other questions about the contents of the video, definitely drop a comment in the comment section. As always, I would appreciate every like and subscribe. Thanks for watching through the end, and bye!